as they come closer and as they go into the World Series, that definitely pulls from all over the city to deploy appropriately for a win or a loss. So just keep that on your radar as they progress further into the playoffs. It does pull resources to include Topanga resources. So as John indicated, I have 34 coming on 34 years on. It's a rarity. I'm on the top page of the department with years on. I came on very young at 21, fresh out of college, and I worked every part of the city. And I think I've worked at just about every assignment at one point in my 34 years. Before I became captain, I was in charge of the elite mounted unit. Did that for 4 years, riding horses all over the city, to include Topanga area. I've spent many times riding off of Sherman Way district there and the mall itself as the lieutenant in charge. I did promote to captain, gave up the spurs, and started in Van Nuys as a patrol captain. I went to Force Investigation Division for about 6 months, and then I went to Southwest, where I was the commanding officer for 2 years. When an opportunity came up to move closer to home, as John alluded to, I do live in the Valley, which I think is an important part for having a vested interest to the success of the division I live in, and living here, having my family here, shopping here. It's so critical that we live in a style that we should deserve. And as a resident and as the captain of Topanga, I make decisions for the benefit of that. So came to the position became open, and I went from an hour and a half commute to 20-minute commute to Topanga. So believe me, with my time on, that put a big smile on my face. I'm currently about 20-minute drive, so makes for a happier captain when he comes to work, and a happier wife when I come home, because I'm in a better mood, not sitting on the freeway. So I was first time I ever been to Topanga. Love. It is the newest station, 15, 16 year newest station from Southwest. It was a 63-year-old station, so it was nice to see a brand new station. The officers are doing a really good job in taking care of it. It is a much smaller command than what I had, but for a population of about 200,000 people in the Topanga area, I wish I had more officers. We're running about 220 officers. We are down citywide on officers. We were about 4 years ago over 10,000. We are around the range of 8,700 now. So that equates to every command having less officers from specialized units to detectives and to patrol. That we do have minimums. We do make those minimums, but obviously, what my ask of my officers is to sometimes make those minimums on overtime. Unfortunately, because of the sheer size of this department now. If I can briefly talk about crime in Topanga. Leaving South LA, it was mostly a violent crime division, and in Topanga, we don't have those problems. When I started in January in Topanga, we were the number one in the city for violent crime reduction, and now we're in October, and we're still number 2 in the city for violent crime reduction. We're about hovering around 18% reduction compared to last year's numbers. When I say violent crime, that includes homicides, that includes rapes, that includes robberies, and that involves ag assaults, typically with some form of weapon. So we are doing great work with that. Our biggest struggle on the onset of the year was theft. Theft, where the majority was coming from the mall. We were hovering in the 30 percentile over last year's numbers, but we've been able to knock that down we're almost even year to date. So we've been able to, actually, we're just below, we're about 2% below last year's numbers. So great place on that. Though we are bad in auto theft, the Valley is the worst in the city. There's significant increases in every division in the Valley. We were in the mid 40 percentile compared to last year increases We've been able to knock that down to about 25%. So we're moving in the right direction, but we're running come last remaining months of the year. So I don't think we're going to make our numbers, but it is a systemic problem. And as John alluded to, many of the legal decisions and the court decisions regarding how to handle criminals that steal cars, it's sort of an in and out type of process where there's not much bite to first offenders or juveniles that are stealing cars. Steal a car and you're out pretty quick. So that, and the ability to steal a lot of cars, a lot of the cars that have been targeted are Hyundais and Korean cars, very easy to steal. It went out a social media blast on the ability to steal a car with simple technology, and it went rampant citywide, and we were losing those cars left and right. They've done a better job now. Hyundai has upgraded their theft prevention system, so we don't see that sheer number of Korean cars being stolen now. Now we're back to the most targeted vehicles are going to be our older American-made SUVs and trucks. I'm talking like the 90s and early 2000 trucks, which are very easy to steal. The majority of the vehicles that are stolen are recovered within 3 to 4 days. Many of them are joy rides or just transportation from one point of the city to the next to get them back. We are better than last year in making the arrest, but it's not to the point where we're seeing the reduction that I would like to see. So that, and so auto theft is driving the and right now we're third in the valley when it comes to crime reduction overall. Our partners to the east, West Valley, is number one. Then Van Nuys is number two, and then we're number three for crime reduction. So overall, if you look at all part one crime, and part one crime is the violent crime portion that I've indicated, but the property crime piece is burglaries, auto theft, theft, and burglary from motor vehicle. That's put into that part one crime. We are just at even now. So the chief's goal was to have a 3% reduction. So we're getting close to that number, and we have a good. As we're looking at the numbers now, we have a very good chance to meeting that 1 to 2 to 3% reduction overall in crime. We do have a new chief who has been announced. He will not be sworn in until November-ish, probably first or second week of November. That is Chief McDonald. He returns to us. He was an assistant chief when I was a young lad on the job. He has moved on to being the chief of Long Beach, the chief of the LA County Sheriffs, and he's coming back as the chief to LAPD. So I'm excited for that. He's a great man, great enthusiasm, and great knowledge of the inner workings of this department. And as the city moves in towards large scale events, to include the soccer World Cup, the Olympics, he's got the vast experience to take those challenges on. The biggest challenge I see moving forward with this department is recruitment and increasing the size and the resources of this agency. So that's going to be his biggest challenge, is reversing the ship and trying to get more people interested in becoming police officers and increasing the size of the ranks. Because I speak from my heart that it is my biggest challenge as a commanding officer to make my minimums to provide any additional resources outside of patrol. As John alluded to, bike details. I was a bike officer. Great assignment. Gets you from one point of the community to the other. Allows you to circumvent obstacles that a vehicle can't get to. And I love the enthusiasm of my bike officers. They're extremely assertive in the sense of addressing the quality of life issues that we see out there that it's much more difficult to address in a vehicle. But those are the details that I rarely am able to deploy because of making my minimums. My specialized units, my gangs, my vice, they're all at minimums, and if not below minimums to what they were years ago. I ensure that they do get deployed, but they're at half strength of what they used to be or could be. But that's kind of where we're at right now. I know there was an ask of, and John, please stop me if I go over my time. There was a request to talk a little bit about the smash and grabs that occurred recently.
Yes, please.
It got a lot of attention last year. The Topanga Mall, which we have a great working relationship with that security team and the director of that store. We were hit last year probably 4 to 5 different times. It got a lot of media attention. We are a lot better this year. Actually, we had none of those type of smash and grabs until most recently. We had one in September. Late September, we had about 8 or 9 males and females, many of them hooded up, come into the Nordstroms, hit the Chanel purse line, grab, smash. It wasn't so much smashing in this case. A lot of it was just grabbing whatever they can and run out, jump into some cars and take off. We were able to get facial recognition hits on many of those guys. The smash and grabs typically will go to our commercial crimes, and they were able to arrest or identify 4 or 5 of them and arrest about 2 or 3 of those from that first one. A week after that, we had a crew come in the second time into Topanga, hit the same store and hit the same product again. This time we deploy a volunteer response team. I don't know when last time you've been to the mall, they are driving in marked BMW cars with yellow lights on. That car happened to be right in front of the store when he noted 3 cars of youthful, hooded up male blacks and Hispanics run around the car and head upstairs. He put the information out when they were leaving, because at that point he didn't have 100% evidence of what was going on. He was able to write down the license plates of 2 out of the 3 cars. The suspects jumped in the cars and took off, and we were not able to get a hold of them. But because we got the license plates, 5 of them were still in one of the cars. They were stopped in Southwest, my old division, and they were all taken into custody. They still had the same clothing on. They had evidence. They did a follow-up warrant to that one of their residents who admitted to being involved in the crime. Were able to recover some of the evidence. And then the second car was the next day was stopped in Long Beach with one of the suspects in that. All Southwest, Southeast gang members, 90s, set downtown, have seemed to have found their interest to come to Topanga and hit our stores there. They were able to turn, from my information, sell most of those purses already and on a secondary market and get rid of them. But that's why I'm going to go back to the voting piece. I voted today, guys. Make sure you read, make sure you're engaged, and make sure you get the right people who share a common theme when it comes to keeping people in custody. The police are working as hard with the resources we have to identify and arrest people. It just frustrates us as much as it frustrates you that the case is presented and the DA doesn't have interest or knocks it down to the CA. The CA doesn't want to do much with it, and the case is dropped. Same with sentencing. We talked about judges and stuff, getting the right people to hold people accountable for actions, because truly in my couple of years here as a captain, it has been with no consequences to bad action. It's just a revolving door, and we're rearresting the same people. Unfortunately, Topanga sometimes is a target because of the success of that mall and the quality of stores it has. They come from all walks of life. Rarely are they Topanga residents that are involved in the smash and grabs, or not even the local transients. They are involved in more of the The one going to Target, take a couple items and leave. That is more of a Valley resident. But when it comes to the smash and grabs, those are typically outsiders coming from all walks of life. On the first incident, that car was actually carjacked in Downey, and they came all the way to Topanga to use that in the crime. So what we are trying to do, about 3 years ago, before I got to Topanga, we had a pretty robust ALPR system on the mall. Those are license plate readers that would allow us to get a hit when a stolen car. And most of the time, the cars that are being used either have no plate or it's a stolen car with a stolen plate. Those are the cars that are being used to come into Topanga to commit these smash and grabs. So they had a very robust ALPR license plate readers there. But over time, they have been stolen or they have gone broken. And right now, many of the license plates are not working. But because I have this great relationship with the director, they are interested in putting the financial backing behind on getting that system back up and running. So I'm in talks right now with them and our IT department to get every entrance up to the mall back with a reader, because it solves. Not only does it give us hits at the time to respond, but it also gives us great follow-up information to track those cars later on and arrest those people.
Yeah, it would seem, Captain, that's probably something that would be helpful to have those license plate readers out there in those locations. You would, if you get a hit on somebody who you've been watching before, you know that they've come into that location before they even get there, and then certainly being able to follow them afterwards. Is that a financial issue? Is that something that we can put some pressure on somebody to assist you in making sure that you're getting those? What can we do to help with that? Because that seems like that's just a logical, rational thing to have.
No, that's a very, very good question. Council District 12, John Lee has just done a press conference a couple of weeks ago. He's invested a lot of money into building out an extremely robust license plate reader system throughout his council district.
That seems like we should be getting with Bob Lumenfield in District 3 here with us and start working with him to get those things in too.
I would love to see that support and that interest behind that, because especially if we put them, there's no secret, they're coming on the 101. The 118 is the target rich place to hit the northern part of the valley, which is John Lee's area. So the Rinaldi's, the 118 exits, that's where the cars are coming in and out. They know it's an easy in and out of the valley. We share that same problem on the 101. So if we could get a robust coverage of ALPRs off the 101 towards the mall, that's an easy one.
What are those running? Can you give us an idea what the expenses?
I don't know, and I could get back to you on that, because I'd
be curious. That may be something that there might be even something that can be done by outside groups and to make some donations and to get that.
I think once I'm done with working with the mall and getting the mall wired up with the LPRs, that will give me a better idea of what that's costing them per camera. Okay. And then we could have that discussion to see what we can do to get them along the freeways.
Yeah, because there are some situations, I think, where even in some of the neighborhoods that are getting hit, they're starting to put those in too, so that they have something that's there, that if there's people driving in those neighborhoods, they at least know if there's a noted gang member that's coming in, they can hit them and certainly watch what's going on otherwise.
So there was a very noteworthy incident, just as you described, in the area there of the hills in Southwest, where the car that committed the 459 was identified through an ALPR, and we were able to arrest those people in 2 days with all the property. So
I know over in Encino, they've had some real serious problems in that, where they were doing daytime robberies in the same neighborhoods, one after the other, but they put LPRs in that was helping them being able to locate some of those too. I think that's something that we as a community should take a very serious look at. A question that's come up also with the what I call the smash and grabs, and sometimes they're just grabbing and taking off, has to do with safety of the individuals that are there. It hasn't gotten violent so far, but it seems like that could really get that way. I know there was one of the security guards that was over at Nordstrom's that when they came in, they sprayed him with mace or with and he was out immediately at that point. And the employees there said they couldn't even go to that location for like 3 or 4 days afterwards. It was so heavily inundated with the aroma, their eyes started watering just in that location. But what do we do if we're there and that stuff starts going on, and some people carry the pepper sprays with them, what have you? What are we to be doing? Are we to sit back and fold our hands? Are we to yell at them? Or to take out our phones to take pictures? What are we supposed to do, if anything, in that regards, because it's it happens, and the first reaction I think from all of us is basically don't do that. It's not fair. It's not right. It's not good. And to sit with our arms folded and not do anything seems to be kind of wimpy and kind of almost embarrassing for us in some ways. What should we do? What's your instructions for us?
Yeah, you as citizens cannot feel that way at all. It's just property crime. Do not get involved. Do not put yourself in harm's way. The stores are ultimately responsible for your safety when you're in that store. Let them deal with it. All those stores have robust security cameras in there. I would say some people would suggest be a good witness and videotape it, but I have seen the suspects target the person with the phone also and assault them or spray them with bear spray and all bunch of different aerosols that will cause irritation to the eyes and breathing. My recommendation is don't get involved in situations of smash and grab because they are violent. Their intent is to grab whatever they can, and they don't care who's in their way to stop them. Many times they're very youthful, very strong, and I've seen people get pushed inadvertently and have significant injury after the fact. So do not get involved. Let that fall on the security company to take care of that stuff and get us the information.
Fair enough. You mentioned before about you having the tough job of making your minimums and have to use a lot of overtime. When you say minimums, describe to us that don't really know how the police department functions. What do you mean by making your minimums?
Okay, so every division has a minimum number of patrol units that are deployed within a division. So that varies from watch, that varies from division. And there's a ratio, a number that goes into that that the department puts together. The more violent divisions, the ones that generate more radio calls, calls tend to have more units deployed in parts of the city. So I have 4 watches, and each watch I have two mid watches that support the big watches. So those are only 2 cars, but the bigger watches are a little bit more robust, and that's typically 7 to 8 cars on the best days.
So basically, out from in the western portion of the valley, from the 405 on, we've got basically about 7 or 8 cars at most that are available at any particular point in time.
I'm talking about Topanga, which is my division alone. Yep. So from the 405, we got parts of Van Nuys and we got parts of West Valley still. We got 7 divisions in the bureau. Each one has their own deployment number.
Well, give me the area that we have out here in the West Valley. What's Topanga?
No, in Topanga area. Yeah, yep. we're deploying about 6 to 7 cars per main watch.
Okay, so if I see an incident that's going and there's 6 cars there, then we know that there's no cars anyplace else that's patrolling. Is that fair?
So then we got the mid watches that support the larger watches. Okay. On the larger incidents that sometimes suck in 10 to 12 cars, which does happen. What happened as cars, when radio calls do come within my division, that means outside divisions will come in to handle the priority calls. Yep.
And where's the cutoff for your division? How far does Topanga go to? Is it like over to Winnetka, or how far does it go?
It's a little bit past Winnetka on the east. It goes all the way up to Nordoff on the north. We go all the way to the LA County border on Calabasas, and we go all the way, and then to the south, we're all the way up to Mulholland.
Sounds good. You say you've got 4,700 police officers.
No, 4,700.
4,700 for total LAPD. I'm sorry, 87. My mistake. 87. I understand New York, for example, which is much smaller, has got like 90,000 or some ridiculous number.
No, that last number, their agency's built up a little bit different. They have a higher population than us. They have a smaller square area to patrol. A lot of their city deployment is on foot. So they walk right out of the station. So they have a lot more stations than we have. They walk right out of the station to their corner, and their responsibility is that corner and that surrounding area on foot. And if there's an arrest, then they'll call a unit to come in to transport. They're about 30,000, 32,000.
Well, you're looking at, you said you're after recruitment. That's one of the biggest challenges you have out here. And where should it be? What should be the numbers that we have for the LA city? What's our challenge?
So as I indicated, 4 years ago was our highest ever, which was just over 10,000. I believe the mayor has changed what the new normal is. I don't know what that hard number is nowadays, but she has supported the hiring. At one point, there was a freeze a couple of years ago, which really put the department behind the power curve on hiring. So we really fell behind on our numbers. So I don't get a sense it's a question of money and support. It's just the problem is the recruitment and getting qualified people into the academy and getting them graduated and getting them in the black and whites. The classes I've gone to and I've attended, is no secret, are like 20 officers. When I came through in 1990, my class was 65. There was classes near 100 month to month. Now we're putting 20. Just do the math. We're not catching up.
We get a question from Ellen. Ellen is asking us about the size of 8,700. Is that due to budget restrictions, or are there other factors that are really going on that are keeping it out? Is it lack of interest to serve?
Yeah.
Has the negatives that have come out some of the police departments and the Black Lives Matter movements and the police movement? What's going on? What's really keeping your numbers down?
Because I'm not in recruitment, I'm only really just giving you my personal opinion as to what I see and what I hear. I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I don't think the mayor is saying we're not going to hire people. I think there is the interest and the need and the money behind to hire people. I think it's just a lot of processes, issue of backgrounds, detector tests, just getting qualified candidates ready into the classes has been the biggest challenge. It's taking too long. I think other agencies are probably picking up on some of our good recruits. Again, I don't work recruitment. I think if you're really interested, listen to the Board of Police Commission and the chief's presentation to the Board of Police Commissions. He'll always talk about the numbers, and he's always asked about what is going on, what are the frustrations, and he'll give a pretty detailed account of what's causing this small academy classes.
Questions come up about I know it certainly happens with me too. You got a helicopter that's flying over the top of your house, and you know that's circling around, and it's LAPD, and they got the big lights on and what have you, and everybody's going to go, what's going on? Do I stay in my house? Do I not stay in the house? Or there's a whole bunch of police cars that show up over at Topanga Mall or what have you. Is there a way that we can find out easily what's going on? Is that posted someplace? Is there numbers that we can call, or we just have to trust that you guys have got it under control? And because sometimes we don't know what to do. Up in the hillsides, if there's a helicopter around, is it safe to go out and go walking, walking the dogs or what have you? How do we find out what's really going on in our community in an easy fashion to where we're not taking away any officers' times to let us know?
There are a lot of, I think they call them citizen apps, and maybe you know a little bit more about that. I don't use it, but I hear good information comes out on that. They're actually monitoring scanners of police frequencies and have a good idea of what's going on. Just because a helicopter is up ahead, it may be an extra patrol. When we're trying to deter burglars from an area, we'll have an airship with its sole purpose is to fly around to give the impression that they're watching from high in the sky with an eye. So an airship above a community can mean a whole lot of stuff. I think for safety purposes, unless the airship can get on the PA system and tell people to stay in their house, I don't think it's meant to be a lockdown by any means. It can really mean anything when you see the airship above.
What are we having as far as any gang problems out here in the west part of the valley? It used to be like, certain games that had names of some of the streets around here, the Alabama gang and some of the others. Yep. Where are we at with those gangs? Are they still active around? We noticed there was a big arrest for some Aryan Nation individuals.
White supremacists.
Yes. I didn't even know those were out here at all. That was kind of a surprise, I think, to a lot of people too.
Yeah.
Where are we at as far as gangs, and are they active, or need to be concerned? Are they increasing? Where are they with the gang activities?
I was pleasantly shocked on how little gang violence has been occurring, or gang crime in the Topanga area. You nailed it. The prominent and the only one that has been on our radar are the Alabama Canoga Park gang up on the eastern part of the division, north of there's no hard boundaries, but more on the northern part of Victory Van Owen and the northern part of my division. But their activity many times is restricted to the Lanark Park area, where we've seen some violence. But year to date, shootings are way down in Topanga. Gang involvement in shootings is way down, significantly down, almost to 30-40% compared to previous years. Their involvement in auto theft is there. It would not be uncommon that when we stop these individuals that are stealing cars, they are some connection to the Canoga Park, Alabama gang. But the good thing is we don't have a cross rivalry going on between them and other gangs going back and forth with shootings. That has not happened this year. We've had, I think, year to date, 5 homicides. One is a gang-related narcotic homicide, and the other ones were unfortunate domestic incidents, and the other one was unfortunately a mother that left fentanyl on the floor in her purse, and 2 little infants got a hold of that. Yeah, that was very tragic. But to answer your question on the gang part, it's been a blessing that we really have not had any spikes in gang violence at all.
Well, there used to be a time when they were doing initiations, to where in order to get in the gangs, they would do stuff. We had some problems with some of the parks around. They were using those locations. While the gangs were not active in the areas, they'd use the park for initiations, beatdowns, or what have you. Is that stuff still going on? Is that active around, or are you not seeing any of that anymore? There was some.
It is still a problem, but it's not on our radar to the point that we're seeing that. We're not getting reports of that. Our gang unit, be it small, I've really pushed them to be big on the intel part. Since the enforcement is not so significant at this point, but it's all about intel and gathering who's getting released, who's in custody, who's calling the shots, who's involved in this. That's about relationship building and being able to solve crimes on the intel part. But those beatdowns and stuff, if they're happening, they're really not on our radar. And you're right, if they do typically happen at night, they might happen in the parks. The gang unit does spend a lot of time in Lanark Park, but their stops are minimal, and there hasn't been a whole lot of. And as the weather cools off, we tend to see less. Even crooks don't want to be cold or wet. So
yeah, that doesn't make sense.
I think we're over the heat. I've never been in a division so hot. Oh my God, we've had a series of.
It was hotter this year. I think it was hotter this year. I think we've had. I know I've been out here since '86, and so this was a tougher one this year than I think we've had in those other decades. On that, you talk about information and getting information and what have you. I think that brings us a bit to how do we harden our own neighborhoods, our own homes, to make sure that we're not going to have a problem. I've got a question that's came up from Andrew. Basically wants to know if LAPD is currently approving the CCW applications, and if so, how long is it taking for those to get in, and what kind of serious training goes on with that, and how does that rank as far as you as a police officer, as far as whether or not that is something that people should get well trained and consider, and again, I put the well trained in, not just to have a weapon around, because that's it's kind of like I take it almost like voting. If you don't know what the heck you're doing, you shouldn't be voting. It's sort of like if you don't know what you're doing, you shouldn't have a baseball bat around it. And so where are we at with that? And give us some ideas about hardening our houses and our neighborhoods, particularly to make sure that this stuff is stopped, to basically keep them out of the neighborhoods, keep them away from even doing anything.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple of good questions in there, and thanks, Andrew, for asking. So the first part is, I agree with you, John. If you don't practice, if you're not willing to use the gun, don't bring a gun home. I tell this to my own brother who asked me, if you're not willing to use it, if that means shooting somebody and possibly taking their life, if you're not practicing with that gun, don't bring it in the house, because your house, or when your house gets broken into, guess what? They have your gun now, and then we're dealing with it. So that's my advice to that. As to the CCWs, I don't run that unit. The department has taken, due to the constitutional changes. We are now definitely looking at CCWs. we created a much larger unit to process them, because as that went out, we were talking about hundreds and hundreds of applications that did not have to deal with in the past. So I don't know how long it's taken. Just assume. I know it's hundreds and hundreds, and maybe 1,000 at this point of people trying to get a CCW. So it will be a delayed response to get that process. I don't even want to tell you how long that is, because
if I may interject just one point on that one. I had a good friend of mine who was showed news stories for the TV stations at nighttime, and it's down to some of the toughest areas in the city. And his comment was an interesting one to me, that that while you may have a weapon to protect yourself with, the violent person knows how the situation is going to begin, knows what their intentions are, and knows how it ends. You don't.
Yeah.
And you don't know what that person is really going to do, what they're actually going to be up to, and whether or not you're going to be escalating the situation by what you're going to be doing too. So without the proper training, it's a real tough situation all the way around, unless you're willing to get out and, go to the range and do some serious stuff once a month, and follow up and get all the good training that you need to have.
And even the department gives the same advice to our own officers who are carrying guns. Be a good witness. Unless you're being assaulted yourself, you don't identify yourself, and you don't get involved, because in many cases you don't have your backup, you don't have your radio, you don't have support, you don't know who else is involved in that crime. Like you said, the criminal has to jump on you because he knows his intent, he knows what he wants to do, and the officers typically by themselves or with their family. So we advocate don't get involved, and coppers are well trained, and they practice their shooting all the time. But when it comes to community members, that's an easy one for me. If you're not willing to use that, and you're not well trained on it, I would say don't even consider carrying that. It just brings another gun, and then there's a lot of people carrying guns out there. The average Joe is violating CCW. Who don't have it. They have guns in their cars, and back in the day when an argument would happen, it would be a fight, a fist, a verbal, or a fist. Now everybody results to a gun, and the bad results end up.
Excuse me just for a second, John. I just want to say that the CCW stands for Concealed Carry Weapon.
I'm sorry.
So that people know what we're talking about, right?
Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate
sure.
it. What about Chris Rowe wants to know about, what about carrying pepper spray? Is pepper spray a good idea to have around, or not so? And I know up here on the hillsides, we got coyotes that are around up here too, and what have you. So a lot of people carry it just for the coyotes, if nothing else. What's your feelings about the pepper spray and having that with you as a defensive mechanism?
Yeah, definitely. If you're going to get assaulted, and we have all walks of life, we talked about the criminal that has the intent to rob you or assault you, then we have a large population of people that are mentally ill and who don't know what's going on, and they're going to assault you for perceived reasons or not. If you have pepper spray and you're trained on it, and you have an appropriate license to use it and carry it, then have at it. I think when you're being assaulted by somebody, and you wish you did have it on you.
Talk to us about the houses and hardening our houses. Are things like sensitive lights that will come on if somebody is walking around the outside, or fencing, or locks for your doors, or what the ring cameras? What seems to be the best way to be hardening our houses so that we can prevent people from coming in? I mean, posting a sign going, my house is protected by Smith & Wesson, I don't think probably does it. So what's the best way to be hardening our houses, make sure that we're going to be keeping people from coming in and doing any.
So criminals are looking for easy targets. They're not looking for the house that's well fortified. They're not looking for the house that's well lit. They're not looking at the house that the neighbors are watching, the house that may have a dog. They're testing communities out. They may be sitting in a neighborhood for a bit and watching who's going, who's coming, and they pick their targets. It's rarely that you're going to see a criminal that is walking down the street and just arbitrarily picks a house on a door knock. They kind of have an idea of what house. And in most cases, they're going through, I would say in more than 50 to 60, 70%, it's going to be a rear entry. So back years ago, there was the knock burglars that would come in and knock on the front door to see who would answer, if anybody, and then break right through the front door. We're not seeing that anymore. They're watching the house. It's typically more than one person, 2 to 3 people, maybe one staying in the car. They will test the fence line to see if it's open or not. They'll go through the back and they'll smash the rear glass or the rear window, sometimes on the second floor, because they want to avoid the alarms that may be on the first level. So, and they're using the chairs, they're using the shovels, they're using whatever they find in the victim's backyard to smash the glass. And they're in and out within minutes. So typically we'll grab a sheet or something to carry, and they're going straight to the master bedroom. They're going for the money, they're going for the jewelry, they're going for the high-end bags and shoes, and they're out in minutes as quickly as they come in, jump in that car, and they're out of the neighborhood.
Well, it's interesting about putting your alarms on the upstairs windows too. Most people forget that and don't bother putting the alarms up there because they'll open up those windows too. What about neighborhood watch? How effective is neighborhood watch on being able to harden up our neighborhoods?
So I have a CPAB meeting, Community Policing Advisory Board meeting, and I usually about 50 or 60. Many of them are elder community members, and I preach this and I speak to them. What is your best tool to keep your property in your house is to know your neighbors. Keep your neighbors informed. I have a text group with my neighbors, and I kind of having a good idea when they're out of town. They will watch out for my property. Your neighbors will be your best advocate and to report unusual occurrences. If somebody is parked in your neighborhood, okay, that's not a crime, but be suspicious of it. If you got a car sitting in your neighborhood for an hour or two and doesn't belong there, you all know whose car is whose. You know what your neighbors drive. If a person is sitting in there, he's up to no good. More than likely, call your PD. I'm not. Let's be honest. You're probably not going to get a code 3 response. You may not get a response in an hour or two. I would not even advocate you making contact with that person. But if you can do a walk by and get a license plate, or let them know that you are watching them, they're going to move on to another neighborhood. Hopefully, they're going to move over to West Valley or Van Nuys and not Topanga. But that is my biggest suggestion: is know your neighbors. Don't share information. When I have a car in the neighborhood and my ring gets it, I share it with my neighbors, so everybody's looking for that car.
I think that good warning for all of us, and let LAPD know if there's something going on. I know we had a what I felt was a follow home type of situation, and went on past my residence, and the car all of a sudden took off as we got in other locations. And when I talked to our senior lead officer, the question was, why didn't you call LAPD? And I said, well, I felt kind of foolish. I didn't know if it was really a follow home or not. It says, but at least we would have had a record of it at that point.
Yeah.
We responded to it, but we've had a record that was going on. So we know if we're getting 4 or 5 of those up in your neighborhood, that needs to be something we have to start watching those areas. So if things are happening in your locations, let LAPD know, so that they can at least begin to track those things and find what's going on.
And it will be a delayed call, but there's nothing to say you can't share that information with your senior lead officer. You guys are blessed to have 2 very good senior lead officers.
Yep.
Brittany's on top of that, and Fernandez, you got him back. You know, he'd been gone for a little bit, but you got him back now, and so they're not going anywhere. And build that relationship with them. Have your association meetings, your neighborhood watch meetings, and share that information amongst the neighbors, so everybody's looking out for one another.
Is it appropriate that if somebody wants to set up a neighborhood watch, a formally organized one, they should contact their senior lead officers and let them do that?
Yep,
Okay.
totally. And it's only as good as their involvement.
Mm-hmm.
Try to get the neighbors involved. Try to get them together. Share the information. Have your holiday picnics, whatever it takes to get people to know neighbors, to know each other. That is the biggest and best thing you guys can do, is know your neighbor, socialize with them, and be your best advocate for one another.
Talk to us about shopping coming up with the holidays. We had, I'll tell what this was a bit of shocking to me, and I probably shouldn't even tell about it, but I will, because it was a shocker. This many years ago, they had a problem up at the malls during Christmas shopping, where they had some people that were hiding underneath the vehicles, waiting for people to come back. And as they would come in the back of their trunk and open it up, they would, with a razor blade, cut the back of their Achilles tendon. So the person would fall down and they could not in any way fight with them. It's many decades ago. And the stuff that goes on during Christmas time, and the extent that people will go through on trying to steal things is beyond me. What's your advice for us to do as we come into the holidays on how do we protect ourselves? What do we do? I tell my wife, never park next to or get into your car where there's a van next to you that's got a sliding door that's on your side. It could be, and you're there by yourself. It could be problematic. What's your suggestion? What do we do during the holidays? How do we stay safe?
Okay, so as I indicated, suspects choose their victims, and they're not the smartest people, but they do this for a living, so they're good at it. They're paying attention to people that are not going to fight back. They're looking for easy victims. That what I mean by that is if you're walking, you're not paying attention. You're on your phone, you're not paying attention to your surroundings. You're an easy target. Your purse is not in a position that you could resist a pullback. They're looking for those easy targets, non-resistant, grab and run. They're looking for people that are carrying in the holidays. People are shopping. They're carrying their hands full of high item packages. They're going straight to their car. They're leaving it in the back seat or in the front seat. They're not hiding. Those are simple stuff we've talked about year after year, but that sometimes will make the difference between your car getting stolen and your car getting burglarized and your items being stolen versus those that do the small things like putting them in the trunk, out of sight, out of mind, hiding the stuff, paying attention to who's in the parking lot. There's a lot of security out there. Topanga has the yellow jacketed shirt guys. They're all over the place. Please report them when you see. Typically, many times it's going to be your youthful type in groups hanging out. They're just paying attention to what's going on and what is the next car they're going to hit. So pay attention to your surroundings. Don't get so locked on that phone when you're walking around. The ones that we have seen that have been snatch and grabs have been elderly people. So they are targeting the easy target, the elderly person that's not going to fight back. It's an easy push, grab the person and run with it. And same thing with the cars. In most cases, when we asked, the packages were in plain view and they went off and stole the items.
Shelley, you've got a question. You're open. Go ahead with your question.
Yes, thank you for being here, Captain Lopez. I also want to say that our neighborhood has interacted with our SLO, Brittany Gutierrez, and she's phenomenal. She also comes to the public safety meetings of the neighborhood council. So we're very lucky to have her. And she's talked about that now there are jammers that they're using to take out the cameras, I guess even some of the alarms, your cell phone. And on top of that, now there's ways to replicate your key fobs, which makes it easier to steal cars as the newest thing. So, is our only choice to then just hardwire everything?
Yeah, you do make a good point. We're running into that more and more. In many cases, we'll stop a car that has, in some cases, we're not even aware that they're involved in a crime, and we'll find the police scanners. So they're listening to our frequencies. They know how long it's taken us to get to the burglar alarm. We're finding jammers on Bluetooth installs. But you're right. The best thing is to have a hardwire, so you can alleviate that. But now we've seen on some occasions they're hitting the electric box and they're shutting down the power too. So we see it all over. And most of the times the burglary is going to occur not at night, like many people suspect. It's going to be when people are away at work, or when the kids are at school. So that time between 12 and 4 and 5 in the afternoon is when the majority of these burglaries are occurring. But then we also see the easy targets where they're sitting in the neighborhood. They know who's not home, and that's actually not that uncommon. That the house they hit is the people were out of town. So just do all those simple reminders of things of, again, knowing and let your neighbors know what's going on. Report the unusual stuff that's going on, and harden your target. Make sure your gates are locking. In most cases, they don't break the gate. The lock is open, and they walk to the back. Once they're in the back, they got all day to figure out how they're going to get into your back door.
Shelley and Captain, I know that there's a community advisory meetings. I know, Shelley, you participate in that. Captain, can you tell us a little bit about that? And Shelley, what your experience has been with those two?
I'm part of the CPAP at Topanga, the Community Police Advisory Board meetings. And I always talk about it at the neighborhood council. I encourage people to come because it's really an opportunity to hear from Captain Lopez, from the senior lead officers, Seth Samuel very often from Bob's offices there. And there's always excellent speakers from different divisions from the police department. And it really gives a community member a really good insight to what's happening in our community and the workings of Topanga Station. So it's great. I think, Captain, you've mentioned that we get a really good turnout
Yes,
at
we do.
our
Captain,
CPAP meetings.
When is it? Where is it? What time is it? And how do you participate? You have to sign up? What's the procedure?
No, it's open to the public. It's the first Wednesday of every month. First Wednesday of every month, and it's from 6:30 to 7:30, 8. Am I correct on that time?
I think they've been starting a little earlier, sometimes 6 to 7:30.
6
Yeah.
to 7:30, exactly. Thanks. And there's free cookies and coffee, if that helps you guys get there.
Even better. Scott Silverstein, you had your hand up before. I've said come back down. You have a question for us?
Going back on something you mentioned earlier, which is recruiting. Also, as a citizen, and talking to a lot of the neighbors around, the one thing you hear a lot is it doesn't even pay to call the police if your house is robbed or burglarized, or it's a non-violent offense. First, it'll take hours for them to show up, and two, nothing happens at the end of the day. And that all goes back, I think, to the environment right now. And I'd like to know if you see any change in the environment, the anti-police environment, when we have politicians, local and afar, that are anti-police. They won't say it. Well, some of them will say it, but
Someone will say it.
yeah, with that environment, I don't know. Do you see any upside in recruiting? I really. How do you recruit against a city council?
Yeah.
I don't even know the mayor's position at the moment.
Yeah.
It sounds more positive,
Yeah.
but a city council that is basically anti-police.
Yeah.
How do you recruit to that? I
So
can't figure that out.
So you do bring up a lot of interesting questions, and yeah, the politics of policing and the sentiment and the negativity that is promoted, and that definitely, I think, affects the interest of our youth wanting to be officers. My son is an officer, and I try to make him a fireman, but he wanted to be a police officer. So it runs in the blood. But look at there are some very vocal council members, not thank God, not in the Topanga area, but that are extremely challenging and do not support. I'll just call it what it is. That really don't resist anything that is positive when it comes to benefiting the police department. There are those city council. Fortunately, the mayor still yields a lot of power and a lot of influence, and she has been extremely supportive of us, verbally attending the stations, speaking with the officers, and in contracts. She's been actually she's been pretty good and very supportive. So she yields the most of the power and the influence over some of those city council people. And there's a couple positions that are up for grabs here very soon. So make sure you vote the right people in. As to your first point, it may not seem important to report your house or your car being burglarized, but if you don't report it, it's not on my radar. Every week, my crime analysts get together on a map and will tell me exactly where the crimes occur. Now, if your neighborhood's not reporting it, you're not going to get my attention to get my resources out there and to dedicate their time and their services and my specialized units to work on that problem. They're going to go where the people are reporting the crime, and that's where I will focus my police attention to prevent from future crimes occurring. So I would say report it. You may not get your property back, but if anything, if there's enough activity going on in that area because your neighbors are reporting it, you're going to get my police attention in that area for the next week or two until those dots on the map disappear and move on to another area.
Captain, before I forget about it, I'd like to give you a chance to publicize the foundation of what they're doing. I put that up on the screen of what's coming up on October the 26th. Tell us about that. It's the LAPF has got an event going on.
Yes. So the Los Angeles Police Foundation has supported us in net. I only got about 5% left on my camera. I think we're going to have enough to finish this thing here. But
Okay.
on October 26th, 4 hours, we're open from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Please come by, visit us, visit me. I'll be there for the entire time. Let's see some of our specialized police resources there. Meet your neighbors. The Rams are there with their cheerleaders. I believe their mascot's coming. If you don't know, the Rams is a big piece of your community now. Their training center is in the heart of Woodland Hills there. Good opportunity to talk to the representatives on that piece. And we are feeding you guys. I think we have 300 hamburgers to give to the community. So please, if you're looking for something to do on a Saturday morning before you get too busy in your day, come on by.
That sounds good enough. I appreciate that. And along those lines about the Rams, by the way, our board has been invited to go take a walkthrough on that location.
Nice.
We'll be doing so on this Friday, and we'll give a lot more of an update on that one. Well, I want to get your question just a moment. Hang on, because I've got a question from Andrew that kind of goes along with the homeless issues. Andrew again wants to know about, are you finding any kind of problems with people at the homeless facilities, the Project Key ones, or the hotels that have been converted, and especially with the 818 facilities across from Taft that we wanted to watch quite a bit, and a little bit worried about what that would have with the students over there. How are those homes, if you will, that are being housing some of the homeless, how's that working out? Is it doing good, or is it a sore spot for you? Tell us the reality.
It is. Some are good and some are bad. I got to be honest with you, and I'm constantly struggling with those that are not managed appropriately. I'm dealing with some of our county owned, county managed, and I'm not getting the support that I need from the county to have the security team responsible for what's going on in there and what's going out in front. And I got the opposite of other ones. The one from Taft. No issues at all. It's a well-designed program. You don't have people loitering in front, and if those people are issues, it's not at the location, and it's not surrounding the area. So there's the good and the bad, and it is a constant struggle on my resources to try to address some of those problems.
Are we having a lot of problems out here still with the homeless out here, or is that getting pretty much under control at this stage?
No, it's waves. Because we have the orange line that runs through our division. That is a center point many times for the homeless to hang out and jump on the transit system to move throughout the city. Fortunately, unfortunately, there many times those that are involved in criminality, this property crime, not so much the violent crime, but I would say I don't have the hard numbers, but there is a significant percentage of involvement and homelessness, either as a suspect or a victim.
Have you been able to get a handle on this use of force issue with police officers being called out to the homeless? And I had somebody tell me one time that they had a problem that's going on with some of the homeless people. They didn't want to call LAPD because they were afraid if they got out there that the person might get shot. And because it's the first responders seem to be LAPD rather than others, and you don't have some of the technology of throwing nets over them or using bolos or some other things to be able to sedate them in some fashion. But somebody has a knife and they're 30 feet away from you, that's a deadly weapon. They can get you before you can do anything about that. So how are you handling what do you need for the use of force issues that's going on? How can we be of help with that? How can we be help with some of those other homeless issues that are going on?
So the department puts all of my officers through a 3-day mental health school, which taught by clinicians to sort of educate the officers on what to look out for, try to identify what psychosis, let's call it, that a person may be going to allow the officers some mechanisms and some tools to better respond with a homeless person that is in a crisis. The department also has an experimental type program. I don't know if it's in the Valley, but I had it in Southwest, half of my division, where it's called Circle. The clinicians would be the first call on a person that was in a mental crisis, and not nonviolent mental crisis. They would be the first ones. When a person would call, they would dispatch that team before the police would get involved. Only if a person became violent would the PD be involved. So that was actually quite successful. I would love to see that citywide, but I have not heard much traction of that occurring here in the city. So for right now, it's still it still kind of falls upon us many times on a radio call to investigate if there's a report of something that's going on. But I think we're all at this point know it's not illegal to be homeless, but many of the behaviors that's going on affect a radio call of some sort.
Well, as a trial lawyer, I'd certainly like to see some other methods being utilized. You know, there are some methods of using guns that produce a net, if you will, that can do them, and some other things too. And also some of these high-speed chases that are going on with LAPD and causes some problems with that. And you know, there's some of them that we just have questions about whether or not they should be doing that. I think that needs to be a good look at those policies. Not really in your area. Marty, you've got a question. I want you to get your question in too before we lose the 5% on that.
Sure.
We're at 4 now. 4%.
4%. Go ahead, Marty.
There are, I actually have two areas of question. One is about the street takeovers and the traffic problems, etc., that are supposed to be handled by Valley Traffic, which, as we all know, after 30 years living here, I think it's a conclusion that they're inept, undermanned, and totally out of solutions for anything. That's the first area. Can you talk about that? Because a lot of that now falls on your shoulders to deal with. And I'm not talking about spin outs and that kind of crap, but they are a considerable problem for a lot of neighborhoods, and it's a safety issue, etc. The second area I'll ask you to talk about, you sort of touched on it, was the homeless, whatever. I'm curious about what are you doing, not you, but what is the LAPD doing about the recurrent issues with the RV encampments? And as soon as they're moved, they grow back like mushrooms. So how do we deal with that?
Okay, sir. And let me jump in there because I got 3% now. The street takeovers. You're right. It is a problem, and it's a citywide, countywide problem. And we do have our shares in Topanga to have to address those problems. And you're right. It typically will fall on Valley Traffic to address that. They have created a task force that is supposed to monitor the social media, if they can, be at the intersection before the takeover takes place, and to deter them from taking over that intersection. Unfortunately, it's a cat and mouse game, as you indicated. Now, CD3 has put a lot of money behind supporting the money for the overtime for the task force to exist. So that is a good thing. Has it reaped the benefits? You see it all over the media still. The least of the problems is the effect it has on traffic when it's occurring. Now it's branched out into taking over 7-Elevens and just looting businesses of whatever they can and jumping back in the car or bikes and getting out of the neighborhood. That's the new phenomenon I've been watching out there. We have not seen that, knock on wood, in Topanga yet, but I do concur with you. It's something the city and the department has struggled with, and we really have not had a good answer to it yet, outside of chasing them out of the neighborhood. They're trying to focus more on the cars themselves, like get photos of the plates, doing some investigation, find out who the registered owner is, going back, impounding the car and holding that car for significant amount of time to the point where it's so expensive they don't even they can't even get the car out anymore. That is a great tool, and I'm hoping Valley Traffic pursues that more. They have a brand new captain there, so I'm hoping he becomes as engaged as the previous one.
Maybe some limpet mines that can get attached to the cars.
Yeah. As to your RV thing, yes, it is again a huge problem. Every council district has a different approach to it. My senior leads are aware of it. They work hand in hand with the council district. Every council district has a different philosophy on how engaged they want to be with the social services or how they want to push the enforcement part of it. So my advice is work with your senior lead officer, give them where the information is. Living in an RV in itself, as you know, is not illegal, but when the dumping of feces, all the stuff that sometimes comes, the stealing of electricity, the mess, the blocking of stuff, those things are illegal. and we could do with our partners cleanups and parking enforcement, and approach it to a task force, sometimes to address problematic RVs. But sometimes if they're falling all within the guidelines, there's not much we can do because they don't fall into a 4118 restricted area. And just my suggestion, sir, is work with your council. You know Josh, Lodi. Work with them, give them your position on this thing, and we will support them as much as we can to support you in addressing some of these problem RVs.
Captain, give us make us feel good and comfortable about what's going on with the safety at the schools, especially in light of the anti-Semitism that's been going on. I know you're running out of time here. Hopefully, I get to your question too, Chris Rowe. But let's see what the captain can do in this and how much time he's got left. We're almost at the 9 o'clock hour here.
2%, and yeah, we've been quite fortunate. We have not had any deaths come to my knowledge. All of your senior lead officers get the reports on hate crimes and hate incidents, even if they're on a day off. It gets thrown in their box, and they get a look at hate crimes of any sort, especially those involved in school. So it's none of that has been on my radar. I spoke to the senior leads before I came on. They are aware of where their schools are at during high holidays. We're really good about getting extra patrol out there, but there's nothing on my radar that has been targeting. I know when I first got here, there was a news piece about an individual that was throwing bricks at Jewish businesses. That we ended up arresting him a couple of days later. He was just a mental problem. I don't think he knew. I'm confident he knew. He had no idea what store he was throwing those bricks through. He was just a random person fixated on destroying property. So,
gotcha. Chris Rowe, you can if you want to unmute, you can ask your question. We're almost out of time here with it, Chris. Otherwise, you just want to pass on it for this time. Go ahead, make it quick now, Chris.
Yes, I live near Shadow Ranch Park, and very often I will hear a very loud noise, and sometimes it will go after midnight. And I've sent emails to my senior lead or called the station and things. The station, of course, is not open at that time of night, and 911 will not. Anyway, I just wanted you to comment. What do you do when there's what it sounds like is like a band or something playing really loud, so much that you can hear it in your home?
Now, who do we end up calling in those situations? Thank you, Chris. Who do you call in those situations? You can't get a hold of the station.
Yeah, obviously that's not going to generate a 911 response. And let's be honest, the call load on 906 radios and 415 noises is pushed back, and it's not like the police are not responding, but it may be hours until they respond. And usually the problem has already solved itself. So if it's an ongoing problem, please hold Corey Garza is your senior lead officer up in Shadow Ranch area. Hold him accountable. What he can do after the fact, if you have more specificity regarding where it's occurring, obviously it's not going to be occurring in the daytime, so he could be driving in circles. But if you can give him more details, like an address or kind of a general idea of what the noise is, he can do a little bit follow up and address that problem during the day to sort of minimize that problem.
Well, Captain, God bless you. Thank you for your work. Thank you for coming and spending time with us, and for dealing with some of these questions and what have you, and for the work that you do over there. Keep up the good work to it. Thank you for your commitment to our community. Thank you for the work that you're doing, and send our love and our blessings to all of your officers over there too. We deeply appreciate the daily efforts that you have, and we hope to be able to see you in person and some other times, and be safe out there with all of them as well. And for all those that are listening, if you think that we're doing a good job with the stuff that's there, join us members. You can go over to our website, whho.com. You can register there, $25 for the entire household. We would love your support. The more numbers we have, the more that we're able to get done and accomplished on it. Captain, have a blessed holiday. Enjoy the Thanksgiving holidays too, and the Christmas holidays, and please be safe out there. And again, thank you for your time for this evening. There you go. Vote. Everybody get out and vote. Take a look at Prop 36 very seriously. It's going to make a big difference in a lot of people's lives. Read it, and get out and vote. Captain, thank you. God bless.
Good night, guys. Be safe.
Good night to all of you. God bless to all of you as well. Thank you so much.